Hello everyone and welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel and welcome back to a UK indie show review. And no, this is not a kamikaze review, this is a Bridge Pro Wrestling review, and we are joined by the real world champion of kamikaze, Alex Connors. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing very well. I'm very excited to talk about a promotion that I thought when I arrived would be a much more upstanding promotion than the ones we've spoken about here in the past and maybe have much more honourable management. But I'm starting to have my suspicions already about Bridge Pro Wrestling. But they did put on a fantastic show. I'm very excited to go through it. It was a show that was totally unique and different to everything else around the Midlands, and it was a show that pitted a lot of unique matchups. Most promotions really like to get a crowd favorite against somebody the crowd hates, which is obviously going to draw in a crowd. But this one had loads of unique twists and turns and combinations that we haven't seen anywhere else. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, it was a very fun show. It was Sunday, October 29th at the British Legion in Stourbridge, which is, I believe, where it's going to be Bridgie Pro's home venue, which we'll discuss because they've already announced the new show, but we'll get there at the end.
Yeah, great crowd for this show, so not really a surprise that they've gone and announced the second one. They really drew well, and they must have put in loads of hard work and effort, because getting a crowd to come to a show where they haven't seen you before means that it's all boots on the ground, posters flyering, and really goodwill and promises. And they did a great job at making sure they promised a great show, and then they delivered. So huge well done to everyone for putting on their very first debut show.
Yeah, and it was a good venue. I do love a social club, that kind of vibe, and it was surrounded by, for people like me, there was a lot of alcohol, and there was a lot of pubs around. There was a lot of food places. There's a Lidl if you want to be, if you're happy with that. It's a good venue. But we are going to kick off with a tag team match. So I don't know if you're aware, Alex, but someone has now decided that we can't say their name on the podcast. Someone that you're familiar of, so you can say his name, I'm assuming, but I'm only allowed to call him Redacted. So we had Redacted and Adam Idol, which was a makeshift team due to Eddie Woods not being able to compete. Again, Jet Marshall, and I haven't written the other person's name down, and that's
Joe
really
Wade.
bad. Joe Wade. I nearly went Alice Barker, but he was in the tag match. So this match, in essence, was Redacted versus three people.
Yeah.
It was pretty much he was in a 3-on-1 handicap match, even though it was a tag team match.
And this sums up exactly what I'm on about. Normally, most shows will open with a fast-paced match, and maybe they'll either all be sort of crowd favorites, or you'll get some people who the crowd really hate, and you really light that crowd up. But this shows the unique nature of Bridge and some of the really unique matches they put together. Jet Marshall and Joe Wade, mechanically very good in the ring. First time I'd actually seen them wrestle. Strikes were on point, mechanically on the ball. Didn't really care to connect with the crowd. They weren't cheating. They weren't, they didn't do anything behind the referee's back. They played it very straight and on the ball. They were, for all intents and purposes, trying to be noble and heroic, but they didn't really interact with the crowd. They didn't really play to the crowd. On the other side, you had huge crowd favorite, good friend of mine, whose name I'd love to say, TJ Sky, and his partner, huge crowd villain who they do not like, who came in his Nirvana shirt, looked like he didn't care at all about the Bridge Pro Wrestling crowd. He cut a promo beforehand about trying to teach a lesson to everyone. Adam Idol, who's normally with his own tag partner, Eddie Woods, who was unavailable because he was injured actually before this match. So this was a makeshift team of a beloved crowd favorite and somebody the crowd really doesn't like, against two mechanically good, but pretty much just calling it straight down the middle, here to do a job wrestlers. So a really unique opening tag match.
Yeah, definitely. And as it said, it ended up being you had the two guys, obviously, that Redacted was facing, and then also his tag team partner wasn't getting on with him at the same time. So they were working over him a lot of the start of the match, just pretty much beating him down to the ground because he couldn't tag in his own opponent. Idol then tried to help, technically, where he leg tripped one of the, I think it was Jet. Redacted wasn't happy with that because he doesn't want to cheat. Very surprised by. Then, so it was pretty much a Redacted was trying to play on the side of the ref, but Idol was trying to cheat no matter what was happening because that's his character. Redacted wasn't happy with this, and then out of nowhere, we brought it up in the Kamikaze one. I love saying it. Malfunction in the junction. Sky accidentally hit. I said his name. No, Redacted accidentally hit Idol, and then Idol clothesline Redacted. There was a low blow out of nowhere on one of the guys. Redacted then did a fantastic tag splash involved. Idol then threw him out the ring because he wanted the win, and then out of nowhere, I believe Jet Marshall picked out a small package to pick up the win.
Correct. Huge. I mean, let's actually go through it from the start. At the start, it really did feel like TJ Sky and Adam Idol had the upper hand whenever they worked together. They just didn't work together very often. It felt like one-on-one. They were the more experienced, overpowering duo. They had the size advantage. They were quite dominant for a lot of this match when they weren't bickering. And it was very clear that Jet and Joe, what they had was teamwork, and that was what would get them through. The clothesline that Adam Idol hit TJ Sky with, again, by accident, although it did seem like he didn't really care, turned him inside out and upside down. It was absolutely devastating. Adam Idol low blow both his opponents, while TJ didn't see, and that's why TJ, I think, like you said, he was playing it straight. He was playing it down the line. It looked like a perfect opportunity to score the win off the top before Adam Idol wanted to capitalise. Ego got the better of him, and he was small packaged as he went for that cover. So that 3-on-1, though, turned the other way almost at the end, because Adam Idol, he didn't care for his opponents, and he didn't care for TJ Sky, and it almost became Adam Idol versus everyone, but they weren't expecting it as the bell had gone, and he beat down everyone in sight.
Yeah, attacked it all, and then eventually Redacted did defend the other two guys, and they had like a nice reaction at the end from the crowd, obviously saving him, and then each other. We're at it 2 3/4 stars. It was a good opening matchup. It got the crowd proper into the show as well, which is always these guys bring that kind of thing, though, especially good old Redacted. Anything else you'd like to say about the match before we continue?
No, I think you're right that it really got the crowd involved, but in such a unique and interesting way, because the dynamic between TJ Sky and Adam Idol, as much as Jet and Joe were mechanically on the ball, but it was really that dynamic that got the crowd invested in this match. Every time TJ was in the ring, the crowd, you could feel they were just so excited to see what was going to happen next. Sometimes he'd go to tag, Adam Idol would walk off. Other times, Adam Idol would tag himself in. Sometimes TJ would get in to berate Adam, and he'd use that actually to cheat more. Just a really fascinating dynamic. And you've got to assume after that ending that there's going to be a meeting between those two coming up. And it's got to ask the question to me, what happens when Eddie Woods gets back?
Yeah, they're probably going to look for vengeance, I'm going to be honest. We will move on to a match with Natalie Sykes versus Shorty. I'll be honest, I'm not massively familiar with either one. I've seen a couple of Natty Sykes matches, but I've never seen a Shorty match. Shorty got a massive reaction, though. Like, massive reaction from people. Everyone knew her song. I wasn't quite feeling, but the crowd loved it.
Yes, this was the only match, I think, if I remember correctly, where we just clearly had a one-on-one, huge fan favourite, huge fan anti-favourite. Natalie Sykes, she doesn't really care if she rubs the crowd up the wrong way. She was definitely the more confident and experienced and had control of the match, but confidence cost her. Shorty, I've got a huge fascination with how this journey is going to go, because it's a very similar story to my journey. She's just left where she was regularly wrestling over in Coventry, and this was her first appearance outside of that one home promotion where she grew up. And so the nerves were definitely there for Shorty. Thankfully, the crowd were 100% behind her. But whenever you step to an unfamiliar arena, venue, against unfamiliar opponents, unfamiliar crowd, it's got to be absolutely shaking you when you first step out. It's almost like debuting all over again.
Yeah, it does help when the crowd does know who you are, though, which obviously was a bit added bonus for her. So she got a massive chant started of chicken on Natalie Sykes, which, it's not nice being called a chicken. Shorty then got in ahead and was on top for a lot of the start of the match, but Natalie kind of used her a bit more experience taking over at that point. She really went to the well quite a few times with perfect plex, which is nice to see once, let alone 3 or 4 times. Perfectly executed as well. saying the
Yeah, she
name.
nailed it.
Yeah,
Perfect bridge every time she hit that.
yeah. Shorty then was fighting back a lot, but Natalie was trying. It was just overcoming her each time. She had put like a really nice net breaker at that point as well for a 2 count. Then out of nowhere, Shorty had like a really quick fight back, and she just hit out of nowhere like an axe kick, I would say,
Yeah.
and picked up the win,
Yeah, I
which is an
think
impressive win.
yeah, it was an impressive win. It was out of nowhere. I definitely think, though, it was the overconfidence of Natalie Sykes that cost her. She was probably the more dominant one all the way through, and probably the person who's been wrestling obviously a lot more and training a lot more. You could tell for Shorty that even though this was her first match outside of her home, she'd also, stopped training at her home promotion, and it took her a few minutes to get into it. The nerves, a little bit shaky, a little bit clunky. So I think if it wasn't for that overconfidence, Natalie Sykes probably would have picked up the win here, and she just let her guard down, and Shorty got that lucky shot in. The axe kick was beautiful,
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see more Shorty. And you've got to assume she was one of the biggest crowd favourites here, so you hope she's back. But I'm really interested to see where she goes now. She's finally decided to break out.
Yeah, and for the reasons you've given, I rated the match 2.25 stars. It was quite abrupt at the ending, but yeah, it was fun. The crowd got behind it, and it would be good for Shorty. I would like to see her come back because the crowd were massively into her, so it makes sense to bring her back. We will move on to a match that wasn't originally going to be this match. So we had Hassan versus Levi Mir, but Levi was injured. So out of nowhere, normally it's hard to replace someone, but somehow they replaced Levi Mir with Millie McKenzie of all people.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a replacement.
Yeah, like it's normally the opposite way, as in like you kind of not
Yeah.
anything to Levi Mir. I'm a big fan of Levi Mir, but like you'd normally struggle to get someone else in, but no, massive to get Millie McKenzie.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously we really hope Levi Mir is in the future, and he's a great talent that we were all really looking forward to see. And it showed in the original announcement how much faith and also what an opportunity that Bridge management had in Hassan Ali. And that's really interesting. Seems like Hassan Ali could be a big player in Bridge just from that match. But then they go and give him an even bigger opponent who's one of the biggest in the country, who's absolutely on fire lately. Every time you see her, a huge, huge task for Hassan Ali.
Yeah, definitely. So this started off with the good old Hassan offering the Prime. Millie Mackenzie's not a fan of Prime, it seems. So she violently attacked the bottle, only the way Millie McKenzie can. It started off with Hassan Ali being the more, which you'd expect, the more of the power game. The shoulder blocks by Hassan. He was outpowering her with the Irish whips and so forth, which that's good for Hassan. Hassan wouldn't normally go straight to his power game previous times, but now he knows that, especially against someone that's a weaker opponent in that way, you go for your wheelhouse.
But it did feel like that was the only thing he had in the opening few minutes. Millie would out wrestle him.
Yeah.
Millie would be on top. Millie would always, that chain wrestling or that technical side, she'd always get back on top, and Hassan would just power through, like you say, with that Irish whip or with the tackle. But as soon as he pick Millie up and go for some grapple, Millie would have, a counter. She'd be back on top. She'd work him down, and then out of nowhere, that surprise power. And that was really the formula for the first sort of 5 minutes of the match.
Yeah, exactly. And Hassan has really worked on and picked up the power slam. He does a variation that it reminds me of the British Bulldog one. It looks so good. Millie out of nowhere then went to her wheelhouse, hit a Millie cutter out of nowhere. Then they decided to have a strike battle, which was not really going to... It shouldn't have worked out on Millie's side, but it did after the power side of it. He absolutely then levered her over the ropes with a clothesline, perfectly just took her out. There was no way she wasn't going over that rope. Hassan then hit a massive dive. Hassan's a big boy, so when he's hitting a dive, like especially on someone the size of Millie, it's gonna stick. Then out of nowhere, Millie hyped up and suplex Millie became the usual thing. I love suplex Millie. I love because you can the stomp when she gets over and then does a German, then another stomp over. It's like Godzilla. That's what it reminds me of. He's getting out of the way.
And it looked like the end at this point. Like she was destroying Hassan.
Yeah, and then out of nowhere, Hassan hit a massive spear to pick up the win. Massive win.
So let's just go back one step to this part where Hassan hit his dive.
Yeah.
And this really actually was a little hint of what was going to happen later because
Hmm.
you mentioned Millie trying to clothesline Hassan over the top, and Hassan trying to
Yeah.
clothesline Millie over the top, and how he was stronger and he could easily get her over. But then Millie actually did the same back, if you recall. Millie ends up clotheslining
Ah.
Hassan over the
Yeah.
top. Millie also tries to do a dive. Hassan counters it and hits a dive. So it was very much back and forth. And this end mirrored that because both people use a spear. And that means Hassan knew the spear was coming. And so Millie went for the spear. Hassan leapfrogged over that spear and then hit one of his own. So that whole end really had one-upsmanship both ways. And it
Hmm.
was probably a huge surprise with the dive and with the spear that Hassan won those little one-upsmanship battles. And Millie probably should have tried to stay in a realm where she had a clear advantage and was doing totally different things. When they got to this point, they were both trying to clothesline each other out. They're both trying to dive. They're both trying to spear. Hassan actually won and probably surprised everyone because it's got to be one of the biggest wins of Hassan's career. And I'm really proud of him because he's really trying to break out and break onto a new level. And I think most people would have chalked this up as an easy win for Millie. Huge shock. Hassan picks up the 1, 2, 3. And what's next for Hassan Ali in Bridge?
No, definitely. Like I can't say I couldn't think of anyone bigger that Hassan's defeated. That I would say that is his biggest win. Someone that's been in NXT UK, someone that's been in Japan fighting for places like Sendai. Massive, massive win. And what we saying, Rest. It was clean as well. There wasn't any
Yeah.
shenanigans or anything like that. It just beat her.
And another example of all the interesting dynamics at Bridge, because this was a match where the crowd loved both these people. One's a huge surprise, a megastar coming in, and she was so charismatic, so fun. The other one's your local hero who's fighting against the odds, who's an underdog, and the crowd loved them both.
Yeah. But yeah, it was overall a very good start to the show. Very good
And
half.
then the ending, just before we move on,
Yeah.
Hassan offers the prime. Millie drinks the prime and she realizes Hassan was right all along. She recovers all of her injuries, just like Hassan does when he drinks that prime, just like he did earlier in the match. Millie realized what a fool she'd been. If she'd have just sipped that prime, she'd have been A-OK. And they both walk off completely uninjured, thanks to the power of prime.
Just throwing it out there. This is not sponsored by Prime. But we kick off the second half with an absolute cluster mayhem match. So we had a 10-man tag, Team Pun Intended versus Team Hughes. Didn't write their names, so I'm going to go for it and hope for the best. We had Ellis Barker, Harry Cruz, JC, Ryan Parrott, and Sean Devine. That's a team. And then I believe we had Hammerhead Smith, Liam Jones, I believe, Samuel Hughes, Tyler Davis, and Will Stevens. Yes. Oh, I'm proud of myself. I should have written their names down originally. This wasn't going to be mayhem. Like, you had Team Hughes, which I called them Team Gingerbeard. They were all just big guys, massive, massive guys with ginger beards. Hughes picked well, and then Team Pun Intended was more of like your throwback. Harry Cruz, first match in 4 years. Sean Devine, probably his first match technically if you look past Rumbles in about 4 years. JC's an up and comer. And like it just was very much. I think the experience side was obviously on Team Hughes at this point. Looking at team, Ellis Barker's very new as well, but they didn't show it. It was very much a back and forth match. So what I was really surprised with, Ryan Parrott was the first to be eliminated.
Yeah, first to be eliminated. We all know Ryan Parrott is a huge part of Bridge Pro Wrestling. I've got to imagine he'd have a very busy day with a lot of things on his mind. You don't really have time to focus on your match if you're doing 100 other things. And he was caught completely off guard with one of the biggest spinebusters I've ever seen. I think early in that match, Team Pun Intended thought, look, this match is going to be chaos. Our opponents know it's going to be chaos. Let's have some fun with it. You know, we all know this is the cluster of a match. Let's have some fun. And I don't think Team Hughes were there for fun, and it took off Ryan Parrott a bit off guard. He got caught with a huge spinebuster, absolutely crushed, and he was, like you say, the first person eliminated in this match. And I think at that point, it woke up, team pun intended, a little bit that they're going to have to take their opponents quite seriously. Not that they did all the way through, as we might discuss, but it made them realise 1 second of playing to the crowd, your opponents don't care. They're not here to have fun. They're not here to enjoy the reunion of some of those names you've mentioned. They're just here to win.
Yeah, that's the Sammy Hughes motto. He's here just to win. So Parrott was eliminated by Davis, Tyler Davis, with that massive spinebuster. But he did take on all comers prior to that. So he did.
I'm not sure it
yeah.
was.
Was it
Sorry,
not?
I'm not sure it was Tyler Davis. If you name that team again, I think
Tyler
it might have
Davis, Will Stevens, Harry, not Harry, Hammerhead, Liam Jones.
Liam Jones.
Was it Liam Jones?
Liam Jones, yes, correct. Because he was actually eliminated first for his team, perhaps, soon after.
Let's have a look. We'll carry on, and I've got brief notes on this. Harry Hughes was then getting worked on. We had a massive JC hot tag at that point. Then I believe Harry Hughes eliminated Liam Jones.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Liam, I believe, stayed in for his team. And that kind of showed that team was quite selfish because he wanted to make a name for himself. He got one elimination. He just wanted to stay there, run through the rest of the team after that. But once they realised that it wasn't going to be all comedy, they obviously managed to get him out. But yeah, I believe that was the first spinebuster was from Liam.
Yeah. Then out of nowhere, Harry Cruz and I believe Tyler Davis were both counted out because they started rolling out to the end.
Yeah.
So, team pun intended, the big stars of that team both eliminated straight away.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Sean Devine was then in for his bit of action with his secret liquid. We all know it was booze, Sean. We all know it was booze.
Certainly had that effect, didn't it? I believe Will Stevens tried some, and
it was too strong for him. Yeah.
Yeah.
He nearly lost his mind. Sean and Stevens had a great back and forth during this match, and then Sean was then eliminated by a sliding lariat, which was fun to see. It was like an Ishii sliding lariat.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Barker then came in at that point, and he eliminated Stevens. And then out of nowhere, I believe Barker got eliminated by like a bubble bomb variant.
Yeah. And that was very quick.
Yeah.
Barker did not have much of a showing in this, unfortunately. He wasn't in much of the opening. He tagged in. He got an elimination. He got eliminated. Very rapid fire. So it would be interesting to see more of him in the future.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Then JC was pretty much on his own at that point, I believe. It was JC versus Hammerhead and the short Samuel Hughes, the injured Samuel Hughes, who wasn't really getting much action the smart way because he's slightly injured. JC was in a bad position at this point, but out of nowhere, he hit a massive curb stomp on Hammerhead to eliminate him. And then Samuel Hughes came in to jump JC, and then JC pulled out for the first time I've ever seen him do a submission hold, and it was a good old chicken wing. Bob Backlund chicken wing to pick up the win. A massive win for JC.
So you've hinted at a little story there. You've got to imagine that Samuel Hughes wouldn't take on a one-on-one match, and he is still really nursing that shoulder. He probably wouldn't be here if this was a one-on-one.
Yeah.
He was hoping to hide behind his powerhouse of a team and still pick up the glory. So when it got down to just him and JC and he actually had to do the work, he was in real trouble. And JC, he's well aware of that shoulder. Obviously, they train together. They're on a lot of shows together. He knows that Sam's missed shows with that shoulder injury. He went right for it and got the tap out.
Yeah, I really like this match. I read it 3.25 stars. It was a very fun match. There was the comedy elements for some guys, just hard-hitting elements. JC picking up a massive win. I love a chicken wing. I'll add a star on just for a chicken wing. But yeah, very fun match from everyone involved.
It was a real mix of styles. I had really good fun watching the Sean Devine and Will Stevens back and forth. The opening was very electric, but for me, it was very clear these were not two factions or teams who knew each other, and we had a real disconjointed feeling in the center. It was clunky, the transitions when teams were trying to work together, and sometimes a lot of people would try and dominate the ring by themselves. It's very hard to stand out in a 10-man match. So some people really want to stand out, and often it ended up causing their own elimination because they were trying to do too much and not tagging because they're not a team. So I did feel this match suffered from a real clunky pace and a real slow feel between each rivalry. But those individual rivalries, pun intended, at the start with Liam, the count out with Tyler, you felt that,
Yeah.
intensity there. But then we went to the comedy with Sean and Will, which was really fun but totally different. And then at the end, JC's struggle. It almost felt like 4 or 5 separate matches happening back to back to back. And I'd be interested to see what alliances continue and what split off. Who left that match thinking that they had someone on their side who let them down, who they don't want to see again, and who left that match thinking, actually, you know what? Me and him could be a pretty good tag team. That's what I'm really interested to see going forward.
Yeah, especially with a match like that, because there's 10 people involved in it. You have to kind of shine a light on yourself because you may
Yeah.
not be back if you don't
Yeah, I
shine
mean,
a
you're
light
not
on
here.
it.
Yeah, exactly. If you're in that match, and let's be dead honest, if you're in that match, you can easily get overshadowed and not be on the next bridge show.
Mm-hmm.
You have to. You're not there for the crowd or your opponents. You have to go. I want to pick up some eliminations. I want to pick up some wins. I want to put my name on that stat sheet so I'm back next time, and then I can show off in a one-on-one match when I get booked for it. But you know that you are on the savage cutting room floor against every other person in that match. And some people really did shine, but it was a very eclectic bunch, and I'm really interested to see how we form alliances or rivalries going into the next bridge show.
Yeah, very fun match indeed. So we'll move on to a match which some people, if they haven't seen the show, would wonder why you're here. So we had a triple threat match, which was Luke Douglas versus Steve Valentino versus Joey Scott. But no, wait, a random Alex Connors appears.
Well, yes, this match, to me, when it was announced, it was clearly stated as being 3 top hardworking guys, 3 guys with this similar style, and 3 guys who have been on a lot of shows, who are really carrying the Midlands. And it felt like an absolute slap in the face that I wasn't already in this match. This match, and when you read the description, it was describing me. I'm the person who wrestles every show here in the Midlands, as well as around the country. I am a pillar of our local British scene, and I am the hardest working wrestler here in the Midlands. Much harder working than some of the people who were already announced for this match. But let's be honest, what a quality talent that we have in this story already, that everyone wants to see them versus Alex Connors.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they do. You had 3 great matches and opponents for me. Why would you possibly not already have me in this match? It felt like an insult. And when we get to the end of this match, I think that insult may have continued.
Yeah. So this match, it was made for me at some points. We had a moment. So that for people that watch this show, they know there's not a bias on this channel towards certain people like Alex Connors or Luke Douglas.
No,
But
upstanding journalism
yeah,
at all times.
I feel like you worked together for a start of this match, and it was like it was built for me.
Yeah.
The dream tag match.
Obviously, we just wanted to make you proud.
Yes.
Obviously. And me and Luke have a very similar style, a very similar mindset, and we are aware, whether or not the crowd are aware, that Hotshot Joey Scott and the captain, Steve Valentino, are already a tag team in some places. So they are going to work together. So we had to work together. That's not our fault. We had to, because they're going to. And we dominated a lot of this match. And it was a very hot opening because for some reason, Mr. Valentino did not enjoy that I insert myself in the match. If he's so confident, I don't know why it would bother him. I'm very happy that Stewart insisted on it being a fatal 4-way, but at this point, you felt like he had to because I'd already called out the bias that I wasn't in.
Mm-hmm.
The match started off very fast-paced. It was all action. Me and Luke realised we had to slow down the high flyers.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, we formed somewhat of an alliance to slow down Valentino and then slow down Joey Scott. Just as this match started to explode again, just as everyone was hitting big strikes and big moves and signatures, and it was action all over the place, there came, in my opinion, a very controversial pinfall. Because it looked to me, I don't love Steve Valentino, And I know Bridge Management surely don't love Luke Douglas,
Mm-hmm.
but it looked to me like Valentino had his shoulder up. And even more than that, his music, Luke Douglas, this was, for those who don't know, he got the win. His music was playing and the bell was ringing before the ref even turned and said, ring the bell. So whether Adam was told or whether management were told to make sure that they weren't embarrassed by having me come in and win this match when I wasn't announced, proving everything I just said correct, somebody, I think, played a little bit of a curveball there. And I don't think Luke Douglas was in on it. I think me and him, we may be able to share some matches for you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they just didn't want me to pick up the win because how embarrassing would that be for Bridge Management?
Yeah, just to throw it out there, I definitely wasn't involved in the screw job. Definitely wasn't involved in it, but I'll throw something out. I did see Carl Robinson around, just throwing it out there.
Well, if Carl Robinson's not at that show, I think maybe that pinfall does not get counted.
Yeah.
Now, let's not take anything away from Steve Valentino, who was absolutely on fire. Another person who the crowd absolutely loved. Joey Scott, who did some pretty incredible things, some really unique and interesting moves that we have not seen from him before, as well as took some horrible double team maneuvers from myself and Luke. And let's not take away from Luke, who was absolutely on top form. He was smart. He was hitting at the right time. He managed to isolate Valentino at the right time. You can tell me and Luke, we never exchanged blows, but I maybe threw him out the ring when I saw the opportunity for a quick.
There you go, no, though, ain't you? Because you both can't win.
I think he understands that. I think he understands that. So I am also really curious to see where this goes in the future after that controversial ending. Surely Bridge Management will not leave it there. Will it be 2 singles matches? Will it be a tag team match? I think we have to resolve this because that pinfall, Valentino was annoyed about it. He's saying he kicked out. Me and Joey Scott were not involved in that pinfall. Luke Douglas wants to prove that he earned it. And I want to prove that Bridge Management or Adam the Ref or Carl Robinson or Stewart or PT or Ryan, somebody screwed me out of that match. So show up for the next show and maybe you'll see Rate Wrestle's favourite team or maybe you'll see somebody else get some vindication.
I feel like that should be the team name. Right, Wrestle's favourite team. That should be the team name. But we will move on. I rate that 2.5 stars, just we're aware because it abrupted the ending was quite abrupt as we've discussed. But we'll move on to a match that was always going to be a banger of a match. We had the
last thing on that last match. You're right. The ending was abrupt, and it did just feel like whoever made that decision, the crowd were robbed of an electric last few minutes because it was really heating up nicely. Everything beforehand was a really exciting level, and I was very excited to be in the ring with those 3 guys, whether I get on with them or not. I felt whoever made that decision robbed the crowd, and they are just desperate to see more. So Bridge Management, do something with it.
But yeah, we'll move on to the main event that was always going to be a fantastic match. We had the Mega Powers explode, if we go with that. We had Brandon Jordan versus Chantel Jordan. For anyone that doesn't realise, they're brother and sister. First ever match outside of the dojo of Kamikaze. I would assume they probably faced each other within behind closed doors kind of thing, training.
So I'm gonna correct you again, as is my role in life. When Brandon previously, and I think we're all aware now, it was very public, donned the mask of the Kamikaze Kid.
The Kamikaze Kid. I forgot that was a thing.
One singles match on an official one, not in training. One singles match previously in 2019, and I think most people would be surprised to learn that the Kamikaze Kid, Brandon Jordan, walked away with the victory that day.
Yeah, and I completely forgot it existed because I've erased the Kamikaze Kid from my mind, clearly. But this was always going to be a banger of a match. I'll give you a spoiler straight away. It was a banger of a match. So it started back and forth. There wasn't really a edge of like them both going easy on each other because they're brother and sister, because they know the opposite effect that they want to kick the crap out of each other. Brandon was quite cocky though, which isn't something to do against Chantel Jordan.
I enjoyed it. Brandon, in the opening of this match, he's the underdog, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. I think most people in the crowd know Chantel a bit better. Again, though, what a fascinating dynamic from Bridge to create this match, because you don't know who you're going to cheer for. You know that they're going to go hell for leather because you can get away with it. You know, people, when you're in the ring and you're trying to win, you can take a bit of a cheeky liberty with your sibling or your best friends because you know they're going to forgive you afterwards. They know that you just really want to win and you want to pick up that win. So, yeah, this was a fascinating dynamic. But the opening, Brandon, he wasn't just cocky. He was basically doing Chantel's moves
Mm-hmm.
and trying to do them better and trying to show anything you can do. I can get out of it. I can counter it. I can do the exact same counter you've just done. And yeah, I really enjoyed that swagger from Brandon for the first few minutes.
Yeah. Then they started brawling around the we would say the arena, the social club, the Amblicot. I'll throw it out there now. For anyone that doesn't know, Natalie wasn't pleased at all watching this. So they were brawling around, smashing each other off tables, off walls, off the bar.
Off TJ Sky's face on the merch table,
Yeah.
and then using him as a poster to go through Chantel's head, or was it Brandon? But TJ
One
Sky
of them,
merch
yeah.
was flying everywhere
Yeah,
during this.
Renacti's merch was going everywhere. Then they managed to get back into the ring and started absolutely kicking the crap out of each other. Chantal then took a bit more of experience, of got in control, was taking down Brandon. Absolutely big palm strike out of nowhere by Brandon, though, or like absolutely massive. Chantal followed this up with massive kicks. Big moves from both people at that point. Brandon hit a massive spinning DDT, which is one of his wheelhouse moves. And then out of nowhere, they both roundhouse kicked each other in the head at the same time, and they were both out.
Yeah. So I would just want to go through some of these moves that Brandon kicked out of because he was he was gutsy in this match. Chantel hit him with a powerbomb buzzsaw kick combination, incredible. Chantel hit him with her finisher, what I call the jig and tonic, what you might call like a reverse package pile driver.
Yeah.
Then she hit that from the front, like a tombstone variant, but still with the legs hooked. I've never seen that before. Brandon, even from the powerbomb buzzsaw, you're thinking he's done. Like Brandon, I've seen that put Brandon away. I've seen that put anybody away. It was devastating. She hits her Black Mask roundhouse kick towards the end as well. I can't believe the heart on Brandon Jordan. He was desperate to win this. He did hit a spinning DDT, but I think at the point of the match you're referring to, he even hit this wrist grab spinning cutter off the top rope before he went up, and that was insane. They did hit the double roundhouse and knocked both of them down. This match was absolutely unbelievable. It was so good. If you only ever have time to watch one match and they do release it, and Bridge, again, a plea here, put this one on YouTube. It was unbelievable. Let people get a taste of Bridge with this match. It was so good.
Yeah, it was an incredible match. He said like Brandon kicked out like the Dead Eye variant. Brandon hit a TKO, which you don't get to see that often now. Pop up power bomb followed by a roundhouse kick, as you said. Top rope suplexes at that point. Like they was absolutely destroying each other. Then
that's a little tease there because Chantel, last time I saw her, won with a superplex. Last time I watched Chantel Jordan, she actually picked up the win with a superplex. Not a common win. And they were both wrestling people that they could lift. Both Chantel could lift Brandon could lift Chantel. That's not always true of these two because they are both on the smaller side. So we did see unique offense that we wouldn't always see.
Yeah, marginalised Chantal then throw back to a bit of Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair. Apologised to Brandon and then went for kick, but Brandon kind of stopped that. And then he hits Frog Splash. Then there was a destroyer. Everyone loves a Canadian destroyer. And then he hit another Frog Splash. Yeah. And he picked up a clean win. Which blew my mind, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely amazing for both. It was an incredible match from start to finish. I was absolutely hooked. Every kick out from Brandon blew my mind. But there was a few big moves from him in the middle where Chantel really gutted it through. Was the the costing point for Chantel? Because she was
remorse.
She hit a big flurry just before then. And Brandon, he did kick out. Well done to him. But I don't know how much he had left. He looked exhausted at that point. He was dying just to get out at 2.999. And then Chantel, whether it was just that sibling affection or whether she just wanted to exclamation point and go, I am the dominant one. She did pick him up, apologize. I'm sorry, Brandon. I've got to do what I've got to do. But those few seconds cost her. and I think she'd have won if she hadn't have said sorry. I wouldn't have said sorry.
Yeah, Brandon picks up a massive win. I rated 4 1/4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was just
Incredible.
insane. I think it was also the essence. It's not even like if you wouldn't know them that you'd enjoy the match, but knowing them and like the brother and
Yeah.
sister mentality. Natalie
But
having a
yeah,
panic attack in the front row.
if they was just two blank slates, I
Yeah.
think you still are going to find this an amazing match. You still have to go watch it. It's a great introduction to both of them for one thing, but it's a huge, great introduction to Bridge Pro Wrestling, their first ever main event, and it was an absolute all-timer.
Yeah, they bridged like did very well. Like overall, the card was fantastic. They set up really well. The main event was fantastic. And I'm very much looking forward to the next show, which we're going to segue to. So, for anyone that isn't aware, Bridge has already announced their next show on Friday, April 26th. So, there is a bit of a wait, but it's worth it. I believe they're calling it Brand New Level. I think that's what they're going with. There's a few people officially announced for it because they're on the poster. Man Like the Reese, who was announced at the show at the end, is going to be on the show. Millie McKenzie returns, so that's a great pickup. Natalie Sykes is going to be there. And then one I'm looking forward to, because I'm a massive fan of him, CJ Rollins makes his debut at Bridge. Very, very good. People need to go check CJ Rollins out. There's so many matches on YouTube, he's insane.
Yeah, they're all really exciting announcements. Obviously, CJ Rawlings and Doris are two of the best in the country right now, so can't wait to get them on. But I do notice someone who hasn't yet been announced, which is me. So I really hope you're not trying to screw me over, Bridge. I know you noticed me on that last show, and I know you want to make sure that I make a point to go through the right channels in the future rather than barging my way in to any match I want. So give me that opportunity, or you'll see me with a microphone in hand. Hugely excited though, because all these matches had great dynamics and they all left us wanting more. And what a great way to have a debut show. It wasn't just a one-off mega card, it was all interesting dynamics that you wouldn't see anywhere else that made you go, how is this going to happen? From the very first match, the TJ Adam Idol dynamic, what's going to happen next, to the 10-man tag, what's going to happen next, Shorty breaking free to a new promotion, what's going to happen next, the four-way with a hugely controversial ending that robbed me, what's going to happen next, and then Chantal and Brandon. Brandon picks up the win in an absolute all-time classic. What's going to happen next?
Yep, and you'll have to check it out on April 26th. So tickets aren't released as of yet because it is a bit of a way away. But follow Bridge on Twitter. It'll be in the description. Their Instagram, their Facebook. They're very vocal on there. Alex's stuff is on the screen as usual. But as usual, like and subscribe. We are moving forward. We've got a Twitch channel, which I'm grinding FIFA on at the moment, EAFC or whatever you call it now. I'm getting angrier and angrier as the time goes on. But that is it for the review, unless there's anything else you want to bring out, Alex?
No, just support this show. It's been amazing. It's been fantastic. It's great to see a new show in the Midlands. We do have some of the best wrestlers in the Midlands, and you want to give them the opportunity to wrestle every weekend so fans can see them. Go and watch Bridge. The next show should be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be insane. And that's goodbye from me then. Oh, yeah!